Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
Kamala Harris recently visited a Planned Parenthood clinic on her Fight for Reproductive Freedoms tour. Why should that be on the vice president's to-do list?
All the news that's been coming out about Kamala Harris and the historic visit to the abortion clinic. And it's been nibbled on the edges. It's been sometimes Fox News had it on their site, sometimes they didn't. Associated Press covered it. It was historic, And what's this really all about? We've been talking for months about the fact that the abortion issue, based on the ballot issues that have been happening in the states since the Dobbs decision, now has become this juggernaut of belief in Democratic circles that they can win elections based solely on that issue. What I would suggest is the train that they've got running is actually a train that's running away from the truth. They're actually running away from the truth. And right now it looks good. But the first truth that they're running away from and that the media won't cover and all of this blah, 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 it's like theater. Again, It's like theater, is the simple truth that we've had 50 years of Roe versus Wade. It's like the Berlin Wall. It's cast a shadow over everything that we've talked about in regards to human life. Instead of celebrating human life, instead of celebrating the amazing technological miracles that go back to where your kids were born, and then have
even more so now.
And even more so now. I mean, we just had an announcement this week of the successful delivery of the youngest at 21 weeks, the survival and the health of a child born at 21 weeks. And it's a miracle. I mean, it's a medical miracle. We're rolling back the potential of saving these innocent human lives that are born prematurely. We're be able to do surgeries. I tell you a story. I mean, we've how many kids that have had surgeries that were necessary in utero to save their lives, and they've worked and they've succeeded and it's happened. So,
which is a miracle for when life is wanted.
Yeah.
Irrelevant when life is not wanted.
And that's exactly the point, Michael. The 50-year shadow of living in that shadow of Roe versus Wade has caused us to have an absolute cultural mind melt. We have forgotten that when we're talking about the issue of abortion, there's another human being involved. I monitored Kamala Harris's remarks as she visited that abortion clinic. You talk about running away from the truth. There's a physicality of it. It's almost like you'll notice the media now is inside, cameras inside an abortion clinic. On what other day of the week would an abortion clinic ever let media with cameras inside their facility?
Never.
And you'll notice that all of the shots are very carefully and tightly constricted to show exactly what they want you to see. Why didn't somebody walk a camera back into the surgical area? Why didn't we film an abortion? If we're standing there celebrating this as a human right and celebrating this as an absolute essential, why don't you let everybody see what's going on back there? Because they're running away from the truth.
How about talk to them that day after the procedure and then follow up 6 months later, a year later, and talk to the same people?
And then we're watching her language. This is amazing. I don't know how you can train yourself to effectively wordsmith and wordcraft your language, your attitude, and your delivery, where you can literally make words up out of nowhere and make them mean things that they've never meant before. She's standing there talking about reproductive health. Well, as far as the infant that's involved, it's death. It's not health. And what exactly about this is reproductive? We're ending a human life. We're not reproducing anything. What we are reproducing is death. There's a complete running away from the truth. And the mega media is completely on board. And they're on board for one single reason. They know that they can use this rhetoric because of the hollowed out mindset of an America that's lived 50 years in the shadow of Roe. They know they can do this to manipulate the outcome of an election. Okay, you talk about the fact that there are buildings in America that are built upon the blood of slave labor. That's true. And we lament that, and we grieve over that. We tear down statues over that. We walk away from symbols. We're in an endless position of repenting for what happened in the 1800s. And you know what? We should never forget what a terrible mistake and how long it took us to live up to the promise of the Declaration. Now we're building our authority for the presidency upon the termination of innocent unborn lives.
We used to say 20 years ago, do we want to be a culture of life or death? And people would say, oh, there goes the pro-life people, taking everything exaggerated, to the absurd. And I would tell you, I'm 59 years old, and I've been following this, all my life. And I would say it's no longer are they getting away. No longer are they even trying to sell it as choice. It's a virtue now to take your baby's life.
Wait, stop. Let's say that slowly again. It's a virtue.
Now. It's a blank check, right? But never mind right. Look, there was the kids on Monday morning that got drunk over the weekend, and, they were not proud of it. They were kind of ashamed, worried if they did something that was stupid or embarrassed themselves. And then there was those that you knew them. They'd walk in class. We got so drunk. We passed out. That's debauchery. That's the pride of it. There's always been a shame attached to abortion. And even when it would be used politically, nobody celebrated it. We live in a time where it's celebrated, and it culturally and economically is unsustainable. It could be the end of America.
But look at the State of the Union address. You have all these pro-abortionist members of Congress dressed in white.
White, like they're a symbol of life.
Yes, they're the angels. What are they? They're the angels of
death.
And they're celebrating themselves as if abortion is an American virtue. Now, we talk about the shame connected to abortion. That's a really difficult word because it's predicated upon the idea that we at one time actually considered that sexual reproduction carried with it responsibility. Now, there have always been exceptions to the rule, and this isn't to be politically correct. There has always been the horror of rape and abuse.
Sure.
And that's always horrible. It's always wrong. And there have always also been circumstances where, in regards to the physical health and life of the mother, abortion has been the only option. And that actually is a part of the right to life because it's the right of self-defense, where you've got a situation where it's not that the child is killing the mother.
Both.
It's a situation where the pregnancy, they could both die. So we've always been there. We've always been there. Now, people try to pretend that we're not. And they always are talking about the extremes. Anybody who says anything that says abortion isn't what they're making it up to be is now some extremist that wants to take people's rights away. But that's the other thing where they're running away from the truth. Because the irony of the Dobbs decision is the Supreme Court said, simple, for 50 years, we've been lying. That's what they said. Read the decision. The majority opinion is, for 50 years, we've tried every way we can, stick our fingers in our ears, close our eyes, la, 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 la. There must be a right to life. There must be a right to abortion in the Constitution. There must be a right to abortion. So they stitched it together like kids in doing paper mache in a kindergarten class. They stitched it and pasted it and put it together and said, okay, it's a part of the Fifth Amendment, it's a part of the 14th Amendment. They even went so far in the original Roe decision as to say it emanates from the penumbra. The right emanates from the penumbra of the 14th Amendment. Now, people have forgotten all this. So it's not like this is endless tirade. What does emanate from the penumbra mean? It actually rises from the vapors of the 14th Amendment. So you got to ask yourself, what were these people smoking to be able to come up with that language? Because it sounds
and
like
it to wander around for 50 years. Ironically, 50 years.
They got it to wander around. And finally, enough people got away far enough from it they could say, okay, there's enough time and there's been enough death and enough people have died that are responsible for this. We can say it out loud. What were we thinking? It's not there. But that's not the problem. That was an amazing confession on the part of the United States Supreme Court. They said, the real problem is, this is a problem, and you're not going to fix it in Washington. This has got to be fixed at the state level where people have the most opportunity to exert the most debate and put together the best solutions that will fit the people who want to live in California and not take the rights away of the people who live in Alabama. That's a brilliant decision.
Exactly. And then it took what? 3 months before that side regrouped and said, are you kidding me? And by the way, let's make sure she's invited and sits next to the first lady. Somebody might have to leave one state and go to another to get a procedure done, or vote with their feet and choose to live where people think they can look. And then they've made that evil. That's, how dare Tennessee restrict you in any way and make you, drive 2 states, of course, spring break, nobody has a problem going 7 states away to party, but, but they've turned that now into evil. That is literally where their argument lies right now. How dare this state tell this woman she has to go to that state?
It's halftime here at 1850 Main Street. Time to freshen up that cup of coffee. You can start every morning off right by listening to Your Morning Show with Michael DelGiorno. Tune in to stations across America and online at the free iHeart mobile app. Get a head start on the big stories of the day every day with Your Morning Show on the iHeart Network.
Running away from the truth. The first truth, they're forgetting there's somebody else there. We forgot there's another body involved here. There's another life that's involved here. And if that life can be spared and saved and brought to full health and maturity at 21 weeks, then how do you get away with saying no one has to pay attention to anything that happens in an abortion clinic until 24 weeks? Now, if that's what the people of the states want to do, they have the right to do that.
United States of America.
And in addition to that, it's a far sight better than Roe versus Wade, which said abortion for any reason for up through all 9 months of pregnancy without restriction, end of conversation. All right. Now that's states like, that's where Ohio's at. That's where California's at. That's where Illinois is at. We're unrestricted under any circumstances, period, end of conversation. So running away from the truth. Now, I can understand why Planned Parenthood runs away from the truth, because they make money doing this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Billions. Let me ask you this. It's really kind of an extreme. I'm not going to run away from the truth. I believe life is sacred because my creator's sacred. All right. And so that's me. But in general, as a culture, what we've evolved from is life is wanted, life is sacred. When life is not wanted, it's disposable. So when does life begin? When it's wanted. That's the difference between a baby that is met by a team of doctors and comes into the world safely and goes into the arms of its mother and begins a life, and one that is probably one of the greatest betrayals I'll take to heaven with me that I witnessed, that the most unsafe place on earth would be a mother's womb. But here's what I don't think they can run from, and so I want to ask it in the form of a question. It's an extremist game. So there are very few people that believe this extremely towards death or conflating women's rights. So what they can't run from is most people value life.
Mm-hmm.
Most lives are born and are cherished. And instinctively, and I would tell you, and I would make this blank statement, even though you never have, if you ever witnessed an execution, and I don't care how evil the acts were that the person did that justified the execution, everything in you would want to stop it.
It's haunting.
Instinctively.
Yep.
We are children of life, children of light, created to live, created to be light. Most people are instinctively, life is wanted. And I think that's what, in the end, this sets this on a course. I know it's a train running from the truth, but it's a train that's going to arrive at a station and it's going to expire because sooner or later they're going to go too far. And I think they already have.
Well, and let's look at one.
I hope.
There's so many other truths that
run down a few.
Speck and plank. All right. We're talking about the speck in somebody else's eye. Let's talk about the plank in our own eyes. One of the things that we've exhibited as a public policy organization at the American Policy Roundtable is how ill-equipped the pro-life movement has been to enter into this era. The pro-life community has spent so much time in the shadow of Roe versus Wade and so much time basically throwing protest paint against the wall that when the wall actually came down, they were not ready. Now they say, well, of course they were ready. They had all these trigger laws. Oh, wait a second. They thought they were ready with trigger laws. But what we were not ready to realize is the psychological damage that's been done to our culture in regards to the value and the treasuring of life. So that when that wall falls down, now people believe that instead of the idea of we now have the opportunity to save innocent unborn lives for all of our goods, all people now hear is you have just had a right taken away from you. And the brilliance of the anti-life community and the brilliance of Kamala Harris and all of her approaches is I'm here to restore what someone illegitimately stole from you, which is your right to, I can't say abortion. It's your right to reproductive decisions. That's what it is. Well, wait a second.
If you make that decision, you're not going to reproduce anything.
Yeah, and furthermore, if you make some wiser decisions before, you'll never have to get to an abortion clinic. Did we forget that? Now, this is not about
this
someone.
This one's one of those handful that are they're beyond Orwellian.
Yeah, exactly. It is beyond Orwellian, and it's yes, there are people that are that pro-death that they would literally invert any language to suit their purpose and do anything to anybody to succeed. And the anti-life extremists. But the political side of it is all about getting votes.
See, I'm so glad you said that because you and I had a very similar. This came up, I think, in a previous conversation. The same song reached both of us. We were at different ages at the time, but at the exact same time, and called us to speak up for those who don't have a voice and to fight for the life of the unborn. And you were older than me, so you were around earlier in the fight. Maybe from the beginning, they were sincere about giving a voice to the voiceless, fighting for the very lies. But then they got so caught up in the political game of the fight that in the end, they ended up just as political. Because I can tell you by 1996, and that's when I first almost left the Republican Party, I began to sense they cared more about the votes and the advantage they perceived at the time than they did saving a single life. And that's when I went in complete disgust.
And that was part of the world under the shadow of the Wall of Roe, because everything got politicized because nothing could actually, the ball wasn't going to move. The wall wasn't coming down. And when the wall came down, everyone was unprepared for the truth of what this has done to us as a people. Now, the danger of this is the final truth we're running away from is China. China had a one-child policy for about as long as we had Roe versus Wade. That policy has destroyed their culture. The Chinese government is saying out loud in publications around the world that within 70 years, their population will be 1/3 the size it is right now because they have so destroyed their population renewal statistics. There are so few women that are willing now to have children, and over the 50 years of only having one child, but not just the process of the mathematics of the number of human bodies, but the mindset that this has created in Chinese culture is such that women said, it's too much hassle to have any more than one child. We're not going to do it. We don't care how much the government tries to pay us or reward us. We're done. We're not playing the game anymore. We've lost the desire to have more than one child, and we don't trust you anyhow. They have literally bought themselves into extinction. The American situation with the Wall of Roe, it's got a little different wrapper. It's got Yankee Doodle Dandy written all over it, but it's every bit as deadly. We've now reached a place where we are so far below population level, if any politician or scientific community and research had the courage to print the numbers, we're following China. And that's exactly what Kamala Harris is doing to us, standing in that abortion clinic, saying it's all about you. Not only is she forgetting and running away from the truth of the child that's there, the children that are being extinguished just on the other side of the wall, we're extinguishing the culture of life.
And economically, I would say it's probably a 10-year-old or 6-year-old kid running around playing today, but someday there'll be a senator or a congressman or maybe even a president, and they'll be tasked to solve the Social Security or the entitlement debacle. And the only thing they'll have in common with today's politicians are they won't be able to do anything. This generation could. That generation won't be able to. It's simply unsustainable.
Oh, you nailed it. C.S. Lewis said the decisions that we make on these kinds of issues in this generation is literally condemning the next generation. We're taking their options away from them. And in this case, we're condemning them to a complete collapse of our Social Security net, the complete collapse of any form of help for anybody. We're collapsing our system of government, running away from the truth. Bottom line, you don't have to be moral. All you have to be is mathematical to understand we're running away from the truth.
The war is, are we going to be a culture of life or death? I think we're living in the moment of the battle to decide. And I sure hope we come out on the side of life.
Did you know that you can hear Michael and David every day on your morning show on the iHeartRadio network? You can tune in daily or log on live to the free iHeart mobile app. Get a head start on the big stories of the day every day on your morning show. Then join us here where the conversation continues. Subscribe today so you don't miss a minute and visit 1850mainstreet.com to find out more. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.